Commander Ji-ho Kim stood tall in the Grand Council chamber aboard the space station Harmony. The massive room was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. They all stared at him, some with anger, some with fear, none with kindness. Ji-ho did not regret what he had done. High Admiral Tech of the Sorvian Empire sat across from him, holding a cloth to his bleeding nose. The purple blood stained the white fabric. His 4 eyes were narrowed in rage. This human attacked me during peace. Talks. Tech shouted, his voice echoing in the chamber. An act of war. Ji-ho remained calm. The Admiral called Earth a primitive mud ball of violent apes. I simply proved him half right. Whispers spread through the crowd. The Sorvians were one of the most powerful races in the Council. No one dared to cross them. No one except a human, it seemed. Council leader Moro, a tall being with skin like silver glass, stood up from the high seat. Commander Kim, you have broken our most sacred rule. Violence is forbidden in this chamber. So is lying about member worlds, Ji-ho said. His dark eyes remained fixed on Tech. Earth is not primitive. We have faster-than-light travel, just like everyone else here. Yet you solve problems with your fists like animals, Tech hissed. Ji-ho shrugged. Sometimes the direct approach works best. Leader Moro raised her hand for silence. The Council has reached a decision. Commander Ji-ho Kim of Earth, you are sentenced to exile on Nexus 9. A gasp went through the chamber. Even Ji-ho raised an eyebrow. Nexus 9 was infamous, the most deadly planet yet discovered. No non-human had ever survived more than 2 months there. Isn't that a bit extreme for a bloody nose? Ji-ho asked. Tech smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. You will learn respect through suffering, human, if you live long enough to learn anything at all. The sentence stands, Moro said firmly. Commander, Kim will be transported to Nexus 9 immediately. This session is ended. Guards moved toward Ji-ho. He did not resist as they placed restraints on his wrists. They led him from the chamber toward the docking bay where a drop pod waited. As they marched down the bright white hallway, a voice called out, "Wait! Please wait!" Ji-ho turned to see a woman running toward them. She was human like him, with short black hair and determined eyes. Her white lab coat had Dr. Park written on it. The guard stopped. The woman caught up, slightly out of breath. Dr. Yunha Park, Xenobiology Department, she said quickly. This sentence is too harsh. Nexus 9 will kill him. The atmosphere alone contains elements toxic to most life forms. One of the guards, a tall insect-like being, clicked its mandibles. That is the point, Doctor. The human must be punished. Yunha looked at Ji-ho. Do you understand what Nexus 9 is? The gravity is 1.3 times Earth normal. Temperature swings from 120 degrees to below freezing in a single day. The native animals are evolved specifically to kill anything that moves. Ji-ho smiled. Sounds like a Tuesday in Australia. Yunha blinked. This isn't a joke. No one survives Nexus 9. No non-human has survived, Ji-ho corrected. But we humans come from a Class 12 Deathworld ourselves. The guards looked confused. Most council species came from gentle worlds with stable climates and few predators. They could not understand how anyone could treat this sentence so lightly. They think they're sending me to hell, Ji-ho explained to Yunha. But humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We have earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, and thousands of venomous creatures. Our own planet tried to wipe us out many times, but we're still here. Yunha looked worried. That may be true, but Nexus 9 is classified as a Class 14 Deathworld. It's worse than Earth. I'll adapt, Ji-ho said confidently. Humans are good at that. The guards grew impatient and pushed Ji-ho forward. Yunha walked alongside them as far as she could. Why did you do it? She asked. Why hit the Admiral? Ji-ho's face grew serious. Because bullies only understand one thing. The Sorvians have been pushing humans around since we joined the Council. Someone needed to push back. They reached the docking bay. A small drop pod waited, barely big enough for one person. It would carry Ji-ho to the surface of Nexus 9 and leave him there. I'll monitor your progress, Yunha promised. If there's any way to appeal this sentence, I'll find it. Don't worry about me, Jiho said as the guards removed his restraints. Worry about the Admiral. He's planning something, I can feel it. Before Yunha could ask what he meant, the guards pushed Jiho into the pod. The door sealed with a hiss. Through the small window, she saw him give her a thumbs up. Several high-ranking council members had gathered to witness the exile. Admiral Tech stood among them, smiling cruelly. Launch the pod, he ordered. A technician pressed a series of buttons. The drop pod shot out from the station, quickly becoming a small dot against the swirling red and orange surface of Nexus 9. Bring up visual, Tech commanded. A large screen showed the pod landing on a rocky plain. Dust swirled around it as the door opened. Jiho stepped out, looking around with interest rather than fear. Impossible, one of the alien observers whispered. The air should be burning his lungs. Yunha watched from the back of the room. She saw Jiho take a deep breath and stretch. The gravity that should have been crushing him seemed to barely affect him at all. What is happening? Tech demanded. Why isn't he suffering? On the screen, Jiho looked directly at the camera pod hovering nearby. He smiled and waved. Then he reached into the drop pod and pulled out the emergency kit, a small box with basic supplies that was more symbolic than useful. No one expected the Exiled to live long enough to use them. Admiral, one of the Sorvian officers said quietly. Perhaps we underestimated the humans. Tech's four eyes narrowed. Double the gravity. Release predators into the area. Sir, that would be against protocol, the officer protested. Do it, Tech hissed. This human must not survive. Unha heard this exchange and slipped away from the viewing room. She needed to tell someone about this illegal interference, but who would listen? The council had already shown they didn't care much for humans. On the surface of Nexus 9, Jiho felt the gravity increase. His legs shook for a moment before he adjusted his stance. He looked up at the camera with a knowing smile. Is that all you've got? He asked. In the distance, a howl echoed across the rocky landscape. Then another. And another. The planet's deadliest. Predators were closing in. Jiho picked up a rock and tested its weight in his hand. His smile never faltered. Just like home, he said to himself. Let's get to work. 3 months had passed since Jiho landed on Nexus 9. The council had expected him to die within days. Admiral Tech had expected him to die within hours. Neither got their wish. Jiho sat outside his shelter, watching the twin suns set. The sky turned deep purple as day became night. His home was simple but strong, built from stone and the wood-like material from local plants. He had found a cave in the side of a cliff and expanded it, adding walls and a door that could keep out the worst predators. Speaking of predators, Spot, dinner time, Jiho called out. A massive 6-legged creature bounded toward him. It was the size of a large dog, with thick gray scales and a row of spines down its back. Its mouth could open wide enough to swallow a human head, but instead of attacking, it sat in front of Jiho like an eager pet. Jiho tossed it a chunk of meat from another animal he had hunted that day. Spot caught it mid-air and ate it in one bite. Good boy, Jiho said, patting its armored head. Where's your friend? As if answering, a second creature emerged from the nearby rocks. This one was slightly smaller, with blue-tinted scales. Jiho had named this one Fluffy, despite it having no fur at all. There you are, Jiho said, tossing Fluffy its own piece of meat. The aliens on the space station would never believe this. The creatures Jiho had tamed were called razor stalkers by the council scientists. They were considered the third most dangerous predator on a world full of killers. Yet here they were, acting like loyal dogs. The trick had been understanding them. Jiho had observed that they hunted in pairs and seemed more intelligent than most animals. After saving a wounded Fluffy from a larger predator, he had earned its trust. Spot had followed soon after. Inside his shelter, Jiho had a map of the surrounding area drawn on a flat piece of stone. He had explored in a 10-mile radius, marking dangerous zones and useful resources. There was a freshwater spring 2 miles to the east. A forest of tough plants grew to the south, providing material for tools and fire. To the north were high mountains he had not yet explored. Jiho checked his makeshift calendar. Another cold cycle would start soon. He needed to gather more fuel for his fire. The nights on Nexus 9 could drop below freezing, with winds that cut like knives. As darkness fell, Jiho went inside his shelter and sealed the door. He lit his fire and settled in for the night. The walls muffled the howls and screeches of creatures, hunting in the dark. Up on the space station Harmony, Dr. Yunha Park sat at her desk, staring at her monitor. She had been secretly tracking Jiho's progress through a small drone that was supposed to be gathering scientific data. "Still alive," she whispered with a smile. 3 months and still going strong. A soft knock at her door made her quickly change the screen. "Come in." Director Han entered her office. He was a Lyran, a species known for their tall, slender bodies and calm manner. His skin had a blue tint and his large eyes rarely blinked. "Dr. Park," he said in a gentle voice. "Working late again?" Yunha nodded. "Just finishing some research, Director." Han moved to stand beside her desk. "Research on Nexus 9, perhaps?" Yunha froze. Had he discovered her secret monitoring? "I am not here to stop you," Han said quickly. "In fact, I share your interest in the human exile." He touched her screen, bringing back the image of Jiho's shelter. "Remarkable. No one has ever built a permanent structure on Nexus 9 before. Humans are adaptable," Yunha said, "and Jiho is especially resourceful." "So I see," Han replied, looking at another image of Jiho with his tamed predators. "This defies everything we know about those creatures." Yunha studied the director's face. "Why are you interested in him?" Han was quiet for a moment. "Because I believe Admiral Tech wanted him to die for reasons beyond a simple insult. The Admiral has been having many private meetings with Sorvian military commanders. I fear they may be planning something against Earth." Yunha sat up straighter. That's what Jiho said before they sent him away. He felt the Admiral was planning something. "We should warn him," Han said. "How?" "We can observe, but we cannot communicate with him." Han looked thoughtful. "Perhaps not yet, but we should keep watching. The human has surprised us so far. He may surprise us again." The next morning, Jiho set out to explore the mountains to the north. Spot and Fluffy came with him, serving as both companions and protection. Other creatures stayed away when they sensed the razor stalkers. The climb was steep, but Jiho's muscles had grown stronger from months of survival on this high-gravity world. What would have exhausted him before now barely made him short of breath. Near the top of the first peak, something caught his eye. A glint of metal among the rocks. "What's that?" he said aloud, moving closer. It was a crashed ship. Small, about the size of a fighter craft. It had not been there long. The scorch marks from entry were still fresh on its hull. Jiho approached carefully, his hand on the stone knife at his belt. The ship's design was familiar. It belonged to the Creoni, a species allied with humans. The hatch was open. Inside, Jiho found the pilot. He was alive but barely. Green blood covered his gray skin. "Help," the Creoni said weakly. Jiho knelt beside him. "I'm Commander Jiho Kim of Earth. What happened?" The alien's eyes widened slightly. "A human? Here?" He coughed, more green blood coming up. "I am Scout Young-Soo. Our people named me after human, friend." "Don't talk," Jiho said, checking the alien's wounds. "I need to get you to shelter." Young-Soo grabbed Jiho's arm with surprising strength. "No time. Must warn Earth in danger." "What danger?" "Sorvians. Planning attack. Full invasion." Young-Soo's breathing became more labored. "They fear humans. Your adaptability, your strength, will strike soon." "How do you know this?" Jiho asked. "Was spy. Discovered. Shot down." Young-Soo's grip weakened. "Must warn Earth. Communications. In ship. Need power." Jiho looked around the damaged craft. The communication system seemed intact, but as Young-Soo had said, it had no power. "Where can I find power?" Jiho asked urgently. "Energy crystals," Young-Soo whispered. In mountains. Deep caves. Which mountains? Where? But Young-Soo did not answer. His eyes stared blankly upward. He was gone. Ji-ho gently closed the alien's eyes. Thank you for the warning, friend. I'll make sure it wasn't in vain. He searched the ship and found the communication system. It was advanced, capable of sending messages directly to Earth or the space station. But Young-Soo was right. It needed power. Ji-ho had heard stories about the energy crystals of Nexus 9. They grew deep underground, in caves guarded by the planet's most dangerous creature, the Void Stalker. No one had ever captured one of the crystals and lived to tell about it. But no one had been a human from Earth either. Ji-ho gathered what useful items he could from the ship. Then he looked north, toward the higher mountains where the deepest caves would be. Looks like we have a new mission, he told Spot and Fluffy. Let's go hunting for crystals. As Ji-ho started toward the distant peaks, he didn't notice the small drone watching him from above or that it had recorded everything that had just happened. The mountain caves were dark and cold. Ji-ho's torch cast long shadows on the stone walls as he moved deeper underground. Spot and Fluffy walked close to him, their eyes glowing in the dim light. They could see better in the dark than he could. Stay alert, Ji-ho whispered to his companions. We're not alone down here. 3 days had passed since he found Young-Soo's ship. 3 days of planning and preparing for this dangerous mission. The Creone scout had died to bring a warning about the Sorvian attack on Earth. Ji-ho would not let that warning die with him. The tunnel narrowed, forcing Ji-ho to crouch. The air grew colder and strange sounds echoed from deep below, scraping noises and low rumbles that made even Spot and Fluffy nervous. That would be the Void Stalker, Ji-ho said quietly. The most dangerous predator on a world full of killers. According to the limited information he had, Void Stalkers lived in the deepest caves. They guarded the energy crystals that formed there. No one knew why they protected the crystals, but they killed anything that came near them. The tunnel opened into a large cave. Ji-ho stopped and held his breath. The ceiling was high, disappearing into darkness. The floor dropped away into a deep pit. And there, growing from the walls of the pit, were the crystals, glowing blue-green, casting enough light to see by. Ji-ho put out his torch. Beautiful, he whispered. Spot growled low in his throat. Fluffy's spines rose along her back. They sensed danger. Ji-ho moved slowly to the edge of the pit. He could see a path leading down to the crystals. It would be a difficult climb, but possible. Then he saw it. On the far side of the pit, partially hidden in shadow, was the Void Stalker. It was huge, bigger than any creature Ji-ho had seen on Nexus 9. Its body was black as night, seeming to absorb the light around it. 8 long limbs gripped the rock wall. Its head had no eyes that Ji-ho could see, but he felt it watching him. All the same. Okay, Ji-ho said to himself. New plan. He backed away from the edge, pulling Spot and Fluffy with him. In the tunnel, he knelt down to think. I need a distraction, he told his companions. Something to draw it away from the crystals long enough for me to grab one. Ji-ho reached into his pack and pulled out some meat from his last hunt. The smell was strong, even to his human nose. To a predator, it would be irresistible. This might work, he said. But it's risky. He tied the meat to a long piece of vine he had brought. Then he took out the metal tools he had salvaged from Young-Soo's ship, a broken piece of the hull, shaped into a crude blade. Here's the plan, he said to Spot and Fluffy, as if they could understand every word. You two stay here. I'll throw the meat to the other side of the cave. When the stalker goes for it, I'll grab a crystal and run back here. Then we all leave together, fast. Spot tilted his head. Fluffy blinked slowly. Yeah, I know it's not a great plan, Ji-ho admitted, but it's the only one we've got. He moved back to the edge of the pit. The Void Stalker hadn't moved. Ji-ho took a deep breath, then threw the meat-baited vine as far as he could across the pit to the opposite tunnel entrance. The Void Stalker's head snapped toward the movement. It paused, then began to move, flowing like liquid shadow across the cave wall toward the meat. Now, Jiho whispered. He started down the path into the pit. The climb was treacherous. Loose rocks slid under his feet, making small sounds that seemed too loud in the quiet cave. Jiho moved as quickly as he dared, keeping one eye on the stalker. The creature had reached the meat. It was examining it with what seemed to be tentacles around its mouth. Jiho was halfway to the crystals now. Then Spot barked. The sound echoed through the cave. The Void Stalker froze, then turned its head toward Jiho. "Thanks a lot, Spot," Jiho muttered. The stalker abandoned the meat and began moving back across the cave, faster now with purpose. Jiho gave up on stealth and ran the rest of the way to the crystal wall. The nearest crystal was just out of reach. Jiho jumped, his fingers brushing the glowing surface. The high gravity of Nexus 9 pulled him down too quickly. He jumped again, higher this time. His hand closed around a small crystal. He pulled. It came free with a sharp crack. Immediately, the whole cave seemed to tremble. A high-pitched sound filled the air, the Void Stalker's scream. "Time to go," Jiho shouted. He shoved the crystal into his pocket and ran for the path. The stalker was moving fast, crawling along the wall directly toward him. It would reach the path before he could get there. Spot and Fluffy appeared at the top of the pit. They saw the danger to Jiho and did something unexpected. They leaped down into the pit, landing between Jiho and the stalker. The two smaller predators faced the much larger one, their spines raised, growling fiercely. The Void Stalker hesitated. That moment was all Jiho needed. He ran past his defenders and started up the path. "Spot, Fluffy! Come on." To his relief, they backed up the path, still facing the stalker. The three of them retreated to the tunnel. The Void Stalker followed to the edge of the pit but went no further. It seemed unwilling to leave the crystal cave. "You saved me," Jiho told his companions once they were safely back in the tunnel. "Good job." The return journey to the surface was faster. When they emerged from the cave, night had fallen. Jiho looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere up there, Earth was in danger. "Let's go send a message," he said. Back at Youngsu's crashed ship, Jiho carefully connected the energy crystal to the communication system. The crystal glowed brighter, and the ship's controls lit up. "It works," Jiho said with a smile. "Now to warn Earth." He set the communication to broadcast on the emergency frequency used by Earth ships. Then he leaned close to the microphone. "This is Commander Jiho Kim, exiled to Nexus 9. I have urgent information. The Sorvian Empire is planning an attack on Earth. I repeat, the Sorvians are planning an attack on Earth. This information comes from a Cryoni scout who died delivering it. Earth must prepare. Send acknowledgement if you receive this message." Jiho sent the message 3 times, hoping someone would hear it. Then he sat back to wait. What he didn't know was that his message had been received, not by Earth but by the space station Harmony. On the station, Yunha stared at her screen in shock. Jiho's voice had come through her monitoring drones. "Receiver! Director Han!" she called out. "Come quickly!" Han rushed into her office. "What is it?" "A message from Jiho," Yunha said, playing it back for him. Han's normally calm face showed alarm. "This confirms my suspicions. We must take this to the council." "They won't believe us," Yunha said. "They'll say it's a human trick." "We need proof," Han agreed. "Can you contact Commander Kim?" Yunha shook her head. "The drone can receive, but not send messages. It wasn't designed for communication." "Then we must find another way," Han said. "Start searching the station's computers. Look for anything related to Sorvian military plans. I will speak to my contacts in other delegations." As they left the office, neither noticed the Sorvian guard who had been standing near the door, listening to every word. On Nexus 9, Jiho waited by the ship for an hour, but no response came. He wasn't surprised. The message might not have been strong enough to reach Earth, but perhaps it had reached the station. "Someone heard us," he told Spot and Fluffy. "I'm sure of it. Now we wait." As he spoke, 6 drop pods streaked across the night sky heading for the surface of Nexus 9. Jiho watched them land a few miles away. "Looks like we have visitors," he said grimly. "And I don't think they're here to rescue me." Jiho watched from the cover of rocks as the Sorvian soldiers exited their drop pods. There were 12 of them, heavily armed and wearing protective suits against Nexus 9's harsh environment. They moved with military precision, forming a search pattern. "They're looking for me," Jiho whispered to Spot and Fluffy. "Admiral Tech must have heard my message." One Sorvian, clearly the leader, pointed toward the mountains where Jiho had found Youngsu's ship. The soldiers began to march in. That direction, Jiho thought quickly. He couldn't fight 12 armed soldiers directly. But this was his world now. He knew its dangers. They did not. "Time to play by Nexus 9 rules," he said with a grim smile. On the space station, Harmony, chaos had erupted. Yunha and Director Han had been caught by Sorvian guards while trying to access secure files. Now they were being marched to the council chamber, surrounded by armed escorts. "This is illegal," Yunha protested. "We have rights as station residents." The Sorvian guard shoved her forward. "You have the right to be quiet, human." Han remained calm, his tall frame straight and dignified. "Admiral Tech will not get away with this. Other council members will question his actions. The Admiral has evidence that you and the human female are spies," the guard said. "The council will believe him." They entered the council chamber. It was not a formal session. Only a few representatives were present. Admiral Tech stood before the central podium, looking pleased with himself. Council leader Moro sat in her high seat, her silver face showing concern. "What is the meaning of this, Admiral?" Moro asked, looking at the guards and prisoners. "I have caught these 2 accessing restricted military files," Tech said smoothly. "They are spies working for Earth, just like the exiled human." Yunha stepped forward. "That's a lie. We were looking for evidence of the Sorvian plan to attack Earth." Moro turned to Han. "Director, is this true?" "I believe the Sorvians are planning war against Earth," Han said calmly. "We received a message from Commander Kim on Nexus 9. He found a dying Creoni scout who warned of an imminent attack." Admiral Tech laughed. "A convenient story. The human on Nexus 9 should be dead by now. And even if he is somehow still alive, how could he send a message with what equipment?" "I have the message recorded," Yunha said. "I was monitoring Nexus 9 for scientific research." Tech's 4 eyes narrowed. "An admission of spying. You see, Leader Moro. Humans cannot be trusted." "Playing. The recording would settle this matter," Moro said. "I agree," said a new voice from the chamber entrance. Everyone turned. A tall human male in an Earthfleet uniform stood there. Behind him were several other humans and a group of Creoni officers. "Ambassador Lee," Moro said, surprised. "We did not expect the Earth delegation today." "We received an emergency signal," Ambassador Lee said, walking into the chamber. "From Nexus 9. Tech's purple face darkened. "Impossible." "The Creoni relay stations picked it up," Lee explained. "Commander, Kim's message reached Earth 6 hours ago. Our fleet is already mobilizing." The ambassador looked at Yunha and Han. "Thank you for trying to warn us. Now I believe you mentioned evidence of Sorvian plans?" On Nexus 9, the Sorvian soldiers had found Youngsu's ship. The leader examined the communication equipment. "The human used this to send a message," he reported. "Shall we destroy it?" A voice came through his helmet. "Find the human first. He must not leave Nexus 9 alive." "Admiral's orders." "Understood, we're tracking him now." What the Sorvians didn't know was that Jiho had set a trap. He had spent months learning the patterns of Nexus 9's deadliest creatures. He knew what attracted them and what scared them away. The Yadr. Sorvian squad moved through a narrow canyon, following bootprints Jiho had left for them to find. The high rocks cast deep shadows in the afternoon light. "Scanner shows movement ahead," one soldier reported. The leader raised his hand, signaling the squad to stop. "Human! We know you are there. Surrender now." No answer came. Just a strange, clicking sound from the rocks above. The leader looked up. Too late. 6 large creatures dropped from the cliffs. They were not razor stalkers like Spot and Fluffy. These were rock leapers, vicious pack hunters that could jump incredible distances. Jiho had lured them to this spot with meat from his last hunt. The Sorvians opened fire, but the rock leapers were too fast and too many. Screams echoed through the canyon. Jiho watched from a safe distance. Never bring soldiers to a monster. Fight, he muttered. Not all the Sorvians would die, some would retreat, but they would be scattered, frightened and lost on a world they didn't understand. Jiho headed back to his shelter. He needed to prepare for what came next. On the space station, the council chamber had become a court. Evidence from the Creoni. Spy network confirmed what Jiho had reported. The Sorvians had been planning a surprise attack on Earth colonies. Admiral Tech stood before the council, his arrogance replaced by desperate anger. Humans are a threat to the galaxy. They survive where no species should survive. They tame creatures that should not be tamed. If we don't stop them now, they will dominate us all. Moro looked down at him coldly. The only threat I see is from those who would start wars based on fear. The council finds you guilty of conspiracy against a member world. You are stripped of your rank and command. As guards led Tech away, Ambassador Lee approached Unha and Han. We owe you both a great debt, and we owe an even greater one to Commander Kim. A rescue ship is already on its way to Nexus 9. He might not want to be rescued, Unha said with a small smile. From what I've seen, he's made himself quite at home there. The rescue ship landed near Jiho's shelter 3 days later. The Earth crew stepped out cautiously, weapons ready. They had been told to expect dangerous creatures and harsh conditions. What they found instead was Jiho sitting calmly outside his stone home, cooking meat over a fire. Beside him sat 2 creatures that made the soldiers raise their weapons in alarm. At ease, Jiho called out. Spot and Fluffy are friendly. They only eat people I don't like. The captain of the rescue team stepped forward. Commander Kim, I'm Captain Tay. We've come to take you home. Jiho stood up. He looked different than when he had left the station. His body was lean and muscular from months of surviving in high gravity. His skin was darkened by the alien suns. His eyes held a confidence that hadn't been there before. Home, Jiho repeated. That sounds good, but I'm bringing my friends. He patted Spot's armored head. The captain looked uncertain. Sir, those are classified as deadly predators. They were, Jiho agreed. Now they're pets. Trust me, the council will want to see them. It'll give them something to think about. As the rescue team helped Jiho gather his few possessions, he looked around at the world that had been meant as his prison. The harsh landscape, the deadly creatures, the extreme weather. You know, he said to Captain Tay. The funny thing is, I was never afraid here. This place isn't so different from Earth when you get down to it. Tay looked skeptical. Nexus 9 is classified as a Class 14 Deathworld. Earth is only a Class 12. Jiho smiled. Numbers don't tell the whole story. What makes us human isn't just where we come from. It's our ability to adapt, to survive, to make a home wherever we find ourselves. He picked up a small bag containing several energy crystals he had collected, and to find value in places others fear to go. As the rescue ship rose from the surface of Nexus 9, Jiho watched through the viewport with Spot and Fluffy beside him. In the months to come, the galaxy would learn a new respect for humans. Earth would gain new standing in the Council, and Jiho would return to Nexus 9, not as an exile, but as the first human ambassador to a world that only humans could truly understand. Just another Tuesday, Jiho said to himself, smiling as the Deathworld shrank from view.